to Awakening Reformation, where Reformation awakens now. My name is Grant, and joined with me is my beautiful wife, Ericha, the weaker vessel.
Hello, everyone.
Guys, we are a part of the Reformed Rebel Network, so go look up Reformed Rebel Network on social media, and maybe we'll get on that new fun social media soon. The one that everyone is migrating to.
Which one?
Gab.
Oh.
So in order to not have their post push down the algorithm on like Facebook, you know, people have been putting like weird characters when they say Gab or whatever.
Flab,
or I said grab, as in grab your freedom back.
There you go.
Boom. But Gab's great. The owner of, or the CEO, I guess, of Gab is a pretty strong Christian. And everyone who has been migrating there has said it's like the perfect mixture of Facebook and Twitter.
I never got into Twitter.
Yeah, there's some helpful stuff, but Twitter quickly turns into a black hole of immorality.
Yeah, I feel like,
like
that
it's
one's
just
easy to
real
get
fast.
lost in.
Yeah, it is. Too many threads.
Yeah.
But anyway, Facebook and the YouTube channel are pretty much the main places where you can...
Pretty sure we're going to stay on there until we can't any longer.
Yeah, might as well. So go check us out there.
Which may not be that long.
Which may not be that long. We're just going to keep going until they kick us off and keep trying to be a force for good. But also be looking at these newer social media alternatives that look pretty promising so far. So anyway, yeah, if you're at the YouTube channel, please subscribe, hit the bell so that way you get notified when we release new content. Like it, comment. That helps our videos get out to more people and show up on people's threads. And plus, more than that, we just like interacting with you guys. I have been loving interacting with people who have commented on YouTube and stuff like that. So it's tons of fun getting to talk to you guys. And if you want to financially support us and help us keep this going, go to patreon.com/reformedrebel. There's usually a link in the description for the episode. And you can sign up for, I think, as little as $2 a month. And you can obviously give more if you feel so inclined. But that really helps us get new stuff going and to keep everything that we have going right now going. And anyway, and all of you who are patrons, we love you. We thank you. You are like the quiet professionals that just keep this thing going, keep this train moving. So we love it, and we couldn't thank you enough for the support.
Yeah. So today we're trucking along with our series. Yeah. We both have a drink. Cheers. Oh, you saw our cat.
Yeah, there's Luther creeping in the background. Both got our drink. That's right.
It's late enough in the day.
Yeah, exactly. And we are continuing our series, Theology of Family. And so last week we talked about parenting boys. Mm-hmm. This week we're going to talk about parenting girls.
Yeah. And
what that entails. I know last week, if you didn't listen to it, go listen to it. But last week, there's a lot of overlap.
There is an overlap. The difference is that the outcome is different, right? Or hopefully it's different.
Well, there's a lot of things that are broad principles, like strength, that are just then applied differently for a boy or girl. But both should be strong. Like there's nowhere in the Bible that says, here's where weakness is good. Now, Paul did say, in my weakness, God is made strong.
Well, and we are called women, not we, like you and me, but like me, like a woman. I've had 2 sips, y'all.
No, that was all natural.
That's just Erica talking.
Weaker vessel.
The weaker vessel.
Right? So that's...
The words are going to be hard for me today.
Not a disparaging comment. Believe it or not.
No, it is actually a blessed title.
So I was telling you that I had a comment that I wanted to make on this episode.
Go ahead, make it.
And this is it right here. Is that most people hear weaker vessel and they think, wow, what a rude thing. And actually, throughout the time of having this podcast, that's one thing that we get commented on
people
all
hate
the time.
it. People hate that I call myself the weaker vessel.
They do. And they're like, why does he call her that? Why? And then we it's a Bible verse.
It's in the Bible,
it's
y'all.
In the Bible, actually. And here's the thing. Our culture, though our culture is predominantly feminized, right? Being leaders, being strong leaders, leading with principle rather than feelings is not loved That is usually disparaged, shut off, censored, all that kind of stuff, right? Although that is how our culture is, what has happened, though, is that, and we see this in movies a lot. There's a guy who has a pretty cool YouTube channel. His name is Jonathan Peugeot, and his podcast, I guess you could call it, The Symbolic World. He talks about this a lot. And what happened is that the strong male leaders or characters in like movies and stuff they have to die. A lot of them die some sort of symbolic way. And then a woman rises up in their stead and then does the thing that he could never do.
Yeah.
And what's funny is that trying to revert to this feminized culture is just women becoming like men.
Yeah. But like the worst version of a man.
Well, that's true too.
Because when I'm just listening to the Canon Calls, is it Canon Calls or what is it called? The podcast with
it's
Nate.
Canon Calls with Stories Are Soul Food.
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah,
okay.
With Andy Wilson and
it was with a lady, I can't think of her name right
Cohen.
now. She wrote a book called The Winter King.
Yep.
Which I have not read, but I'm sure is great.
Published by Canon Press.
But they were talking about female protagonists.
Yeah.
And one thing that they were talking about is how the rise of the female protagonist in literature has become more popular, like overtly feminized.
Right.
And how this new character development has sort of taken off, which is that there is a female who is now the main character who doesn't care that she's bad. Like it used to be that women come in and yes, like she dies, takes the place of the man and does the thing that a man can't do or couldn't do or whatever, and she becomes the female savior. But more recently what's happening is that the women are becoming like the anti-heroes.
Yeah, the anti-hero.
And they are just okay with being bad and doing the bad thing.
Right. Yeah. Crossing moral boundaries and
being neutral, like basically what do they say? Like being gray, like neutrally or morally gray. I think is what they said, morally gray.
Yeah.
Anyway, weird things are happening.
So
right now.
Yes, but all of this should feed into how you think about raising your girls.
Yes, because they're being fed stories. They're being fed lies.
Right.
And so once again, there are ditches you can fall into. One is that a woman is just a weak little helpless, mouse.
Baby machine.
Yeah, and then the other ditch is that she's stronger than men. She doesn't need a man.
Mom. You don't need a man.
Yeah,
you don't need to be a mom. You don't need to be in the home.
Being what God created a woman to be is actually demeaning to women, and so you don't need to be the keeper of your home. Right. You can go keep up with the men and do better than men even. Right,
but really what it should be is biblical. And in that all that the Bible has laid out for a woman's role is a glorious thing, and that glory should be encouraged and cultivated and developed. That is what the aim and our goal is.
And you can go back and listen to our women's episode where we talked about what it means to be a godly woman. That would be helpful. That's obviously the goal for your daughter. Right. Should be the goal for your daughter. And just like we talked about last week with the boys, your goal for your girls is to have them be mature and godly and learning skills, learning how to keep their home, all of these things as young as possible. Be training them as young as possible to love their home. Be training them, how to do laundry and how to balance a budget and how to bless those around them. Like teach your daughters to make cookies for the neighbors and care for them. Teach your daughters to be frugal and
to, first of all, love the home stuff.
Love the home stuff and love God. And teach them that you don't just do this as a means to an end.
Right.
But that in doing these things, God blesses you and you are a blessing.
Right.
And this is where fulfillment comes. You can chase after the CEO position. You can chase after more education or being more successful than men or more successful than your husband or whatever. And that will never fulfill you like just being obedient to God.
So true.
And I was actually just talking with someone. Really I don't know if she'd care if I use her name. Probably not.
Maybe just don't. Yeah.
Well, you know who you are because I know you listen to this podcast.
Okay.
You're my sourdough sister. You're making bread and delivering it to your neighbors. You know who you are.
Awesome.
But I was talking with her, and we were just discussing like how profound baking is. Baking bread in particular. Yeah. You would never think that like baking bread and delivering it to your neighbors is as satisfying as what it is.
Yeah.
Or as it is.
You never realize the impact something like that.
But it's not even that the bread itself is doing anything so much as just submitting to God's plan for your life actually is the blessing, right? That's Finding your place in God's creation is the blessing. And the problem is that there's so much confusion right now in the world, and girls are having to grow up in this secularized, feminized culture, and they're thinking, well, do I become like a man? Is that my goal?
Only girls can be like men right now.
Yeah, that's true, because men can't be like men. That's toxic masculinity. Yeah. But like it's confusing, and then you look at teen magazines, or you look at television shows, or books, novels, whatever. It's all confusing.
Yep.
So it's hard for girls to grow up and actually think that doing the things that God has given to them to do is fulfilling. They feel like, if I just stay home and have babies and love my husband, love my children, be homeward focused, that's not going to fulfill me. That's the lie.
Right, exactly. And that's the false starting point, is that you thinking your life has anything to do with just how you are feeling and fulfilling your whatever.
Let's start there then, okay?
Wait, but hold on.
Oh, okay.
But like last episode, don't lose that thought though. Okay. It's just like last episode. You're at the doctor, ultrasound, says you're having a girl, and then the day comes, or you waited until that day, and she's born. And what's the first thing you do? Because you are a Christian and you just had a kid. You
baptize them.
You give them the sign of the covenant, because now God has said this kid
is a Christian kid.
A Christian kid, and that's why I put this kid in a Christian family. And kids of believers, according to 1 Corinthians 7, are holy unto the Lord.
It's true, y'all.
And that is why they should be baptized. But if you don't, we
still love you.
Still love you. And it's still a covenant kid. And so there's a Christian way to raise those kids.
Yeah.
Just wanted to get that out of the way. Now, what were you going to say?
Good footwork. So the feelings thing, we were talking about feelings.
I feel like this might be a large chunk of this podcast.
Women are heavy on feelings typically, and not every
woman. Which is good,
woman.
because men are not, so it balances.
And this is a generalization. Totally.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, we got to be able to live in this world in some generalizations, right? Because there are so many exceptions, and it takes you forever to really sift through all those. Mm-hmm. And so please be gracious with us as we speak in generalities.
We're not cookie cuttering everyone. Cookie cuttering?
I'm down with it.
I don't know. Whatever. Because my personality actually isn't like a typical female personality.
Right.
So I'm not trying to be like stereotypical, but generally women do deal more in feelings. And you can even see this with little girls. Typically, little girls will have their feelings hurt more easily. Mm-hmm. Typically, little girls will feel...
when they see things more personally and relationally.
Yes.
Whereas men do not.
Right. Little boys can have squabbles with their friends and get over it pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. Little girls are much easier at holding grudges, right? Like if a little girl crosses her little friend, typically the grudge is being held a little bit longer than the boys. The boys can punch each other in the face and get up and play Nerf gun 5 minutes later.
Want to do karate in the basement?
Yup.
But a little girl, then it's, you want to play date with whatever? Nope.
No, she's mean to me. I don't like her.
Right. It's like, whoa, let's forgive. And maybe, you gotta work on that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Way more than with boys.
And so, starting there, training your daughters to be the kind of women who, like Rachel Jankovic always says, can look at their feelings and tell them to shut up and salute Jesus.
So good.
That's what we need to teach our daughters.
Right. And that would
you can feel things, but your feelings need to salute Jesus. So if your feelings are sinful feelings, they need to be placed under the feet of Jesus too.
Right. And right now, this is an ever-present thing that we are doing in our parenting.
Yes.
Because Lila is 10.
And puberty is coming for us.
Right around the corner. And so the mastering of feelings is something we are constantly encouraging her to do.
She, truth be told, is actually very good at it.
Yes.
She is not a hard child at all to parent.
But so far with Eddie, who is not too much younger than her, this is not really...
No, it's not.
...an issue as far as him. It's not... There isn't a, a domination of feelings and really trying hard to get out of a funk or get out of
right. When they were little, we would say, like, Eddie hardly ever cries. So when Eddie does cry, you know it's something bad. Like, he's broken something.
Right.
Like, something terrible must have happened to make Eddie cry.
Yep.
It was never that way for our daughters.
No.
But you can see this, the feelings thing, obviously when they're 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, girls are more capable of discussing their feelings generally. But when they're little, when they're, 2, 3, 4, a lot of times you can see this in fits that are being pitched.
Right. And that is where...
And screaming and shrieking and just general displeasure with the parents.
Right. With life, all things. But that's where the training begins. And that's... And so like last week with boys, we talked about how parenting strength in kids just functions in a different way as far as the outcome is. Like, you're not really going to ever, or at least you shouldn't, like women should have physical strength, but that never becomes like a predominant trait.
We have 2 girls, and we've never once had to chastise them for wrestling in the house.
Right.
That's never been a thing.
Right.
Ever. What has been a thing more often than not is
emotional
so-and-so took my Barbie and that really hurt my feelings, or something similar to that.
Again, relational, right?
And that's where we have to teach our daughters strength more so, because that's often the temptation, to feel hurt, to feel slighted, to feel certain things that are not always valid. Sometimes they are, but a lot of times they're not.
Right. And so obviously that's the weakness for them. And so strength for them, more often than not, is going to be strength over those strong emotions. Whereas with boys, it's going to be, you have to get self-control and not be dominated by the, your physical.
Well, and once again, you can see this even in society. Like, we had women's marches a couple years back. I think we still have them, but they're not as common anymore. Yeah. Where women were like literally marching around, screaming about their reproductive rights, wearing vaginas on their heads.
Right.
Because women feel things, and women can pitch a fit. We can scream, we can kick, we can do all the things, and it's often validated because women feel things, and that's fine.
Right.
Where were the men who were acting that way, wearing penises on their heads? I've never seen that happen before, right?
I haven't seen that march.
It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Because men do things differently than women do.
Well, and it's telling that the closest thing that you could imagine to that, though, is going to be like a pride parade.
Which is a feminized man.
Which is just a feminized man. Yeah. So it's, exactly.
Or the BLM protests, which went super violent. Because when men are acting out of their strength, it becomes violent, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point, babe. And that would be probably the predominant crowd. It's still both. Again,
this is a generalization, yes.
But yeah, that's good. So, the emotions thing, the patience and the consistently parenting and training the self-control over emotions is a huge thing in girls.
And that does mean like training their hands too. Like, you may not hit, you may not bite, you may not do those things when they're little. But also training their mouths when they get older. Like, no talking back. Don't be sassy. It's not okay for you to gossip about your friends. It's not okay for you to, act ungodly or unbecoming of a woman. There is still physical training involved in daughters as well. I'm not trying to make it sound like it's all emotional. There is a physical training. But I think moms, especially, if you are homeward focused and you are a stay-at-home mom, it's your job to make being a stay-at-home mom attractive to your daughters.
Yeah, a joyful thing.
So many of stay-at-home moms like totally hate that we have to be at home. We do it because we feel God wants us to, but we don't make it look appealing or attractive or like something that our daughter should aspire to. And I can't tell you how many times I've had people say, what do you think your kids are going to be when they grow up? And I'm thinking, I have 2 daughters, so I hope they're going to be moms. Right. And I have a son, and I have no idea where God's going to take him. Yeah. I hope my daughters find a godly man, marry him, raise babies to the glory of God. That's what I hope for my daughters.
Yeah, that's our highest.
And that's not
hope.
Less, ladies. No. That actually is the most important job a woman could ever do.
Right. that's the most glorious thing,
and
God glorifying thing that they could do with their life.
And that is how we, once again, going back to last week, we talked about how men build a Christian culture. This is how women build a Christian culture. Like, if there were no Christian women raising Christian kids, where would the church be?
Where would that happen? Yeah.
Like, can you think of a better job that God would give to a woman other than bear more disciples for me?
Right. For dads with your girls, as you raise them, obviously, well, maybe it's not obvious, but dads need to be a strong covering for their girls, to where your girls feel complete and utter safety and protection from you. And that's because you are making an intentional, concerted effort all the time to be a safe place, a protected place for them. And this doesn't mean, though, that you encourage all of those emotions and all that kind of stuff, but you make sure to be that protection for them. And then the reason for that later down the road is then they will be attracted to a guy who does the same thing. They're not going to be attracted to a guy who mistreats them or anything like that.
Or just caters to their every little whim, their servant.
Yeah, or a little servant leader, quote unquote, yuck, who comes and just says, like, who just kisses the ground that they walk on.
Yeah.
They're going to be so put off by that. It's like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah.
Why aren't you, like, leading something?
Yeah.
And so you lead in that way to be a covering, to be an encouragement to them, to encourage them to godly femininity, to praise those domestic things that not only your wife is doing, or that whatever then they do. So if they, made sandwiches for lunch, or whatever it was that they were doing, some domestic
task.
Like
our daughter's learning calligraphy right now, and she loves to show you what she's learning and different skills and different domestic things.
That's the part of femininity too, right? The beautifying of things, which is a very feminine thing. And so when you're girls, and I can totally see this in a lot of dads just being like, oh yeah, whatever. Well, she always shows me her little picture that she colored. But you need to praise that every time your daughter is spending time and effort into beautifying something, because one day that's going to be her own home, her room, the place that she is trying to build for her family. And so she's going to know. If
a wise woman builds her home, then you need to praise her efforts and provide opportunities for her to learn how to do those things, because it's not okay for you to just say, go ahead and learn whatever skill you want to learn. You have to be the one, like, buying her
the calligraphy set.
Here's the embroidery hoop. Here, like, let's go to Joann's or Michael's or whatever, and let's go find something fun for you to try. Or, like, those are great things for dads to encourage their daughters and provide for their daughters to grow and learn.
Your makeup's really cute.
Yeah.
Compliment your daughters.
Well, and that's another big thing that dads have a problem with sometimes, and moms too, I guess. But when their daughters do start hitting that puberty age and they start wanting to wear makeup or a bra or anything more adult or grown, a lot of times parents have a massive problem with it. And surely there is an inappropriate way to do those things. But as your daughter is old enough, in reasonable age, encourage her. Like, you want your daughters to be beautiful. You want your daughters to be feminine. So if you're always saying, you can't wear makeup until you're 35, or you can't date until you're 50 or whatever, and they're like cutesy, funny things that, like, we have in society have encouraged fathers to, like, say. But that's actually wrong-headed, because a father should say, you look beautiful. You're growing into a beautiful young lady. Whoever ends up marrying you is going to be a lucky man. Right. And then instead of saying things like, you're not going to date till you're 35, you should say, God has designed you to be married to a man, a godly man, and for you to have babies and, manage your home. And I can't wait to see who it is that God has planned for you to marry. Right. Like, encourage those things. You want your daughters to want those things.
Yeah. Part of the problem of teen pregnancy is that we tell these young women that, especially if you're Christian, don't have sex, you can't have a boyfriend until you're whatever. But then also we're telling them that don't even get married right out of high school. Go to college for 4 years.
Right.
Be a doctor. Be a lawyer. So go
Have
to
a
college
career.
till you're 30. Then you got to work the job. And so
pay
now,
off your debts.
Yeah, pay off your crazy student loans. And so, like, that's the future they have. And you're telling them, no, you're not a woman yet. And plus, you have all these things to do. And she's like, well, I'm going to prove you that I'm a woman.
Yeah.
And when you try to shut off things like that are very feminine and womanly, either you're just going to completely crush her.
Yeah.
Or, and this is the same thing with like the helicopter mom with the boys. They're going to resent you or you're going to crush them. Anyway, with the girls, you're going to crush them, or they're just going to double down and prove to you
how womanly they are.
Mm-hmm. And so they're just going to sneak behind your back, or they're going to, or whatever it is.
And they'll find validation from a man.
Right. Exactly.
The wrong man.
Yeah. But then at that point, it'll be the wrong man.
Yeah. It's too late then.
So dads, you got to be involved at that stage with the picking out the bra or the underwear, or like be a part of that in some form or fashion. And not in a creepy way,
but just being like,
yeah.
Oh, like I think it's time that we go get you a bra so we can go grab one. That's fine.
Yeah,
don't make it weird. Don't make those kinds of things overly weirdly sexual.
Yeah.
They don't need to be.
No, knock it off. And if you can't help it, then you probably have an issue that you need to go figure it out with your pastor.
Or like I can remember having friends growing up whose dads would freak out at like, when the girls were 13, 14 years old, if they were wearing mascara. And thinking like, Sheesh. It's a coat of mascara. The world can't even see it. But truthfully, at 13 or 14 years old, I knew that these girls had already been making out with boys for a couple of years. And I'm thinking, trust me, the mascara is the least of your concerns right now.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, anyway.
So that's fun.
So but it's so important. I mean, our culture really is falling apart on a lot of those things right there. There is so much confusion when it comes to that stuff. And the Christian culture is pretty much just as bad. There's a very small portion of even the Reformed evangelical world that I think does this right. It's still very small, that encourages domesticity, encourages biblical femininity.
Motherhood is actually the highest good.
And we're not saying those things can even go in a wonky direction.
Oh, for sure. I mean,
there are cults based off of just
motherhood.
Women being turned into
well,
baby
and once
machines.
Again, if you listen to our Godly Women episode, you would know we've already talked about all that and how that's a ditch you can fall into. But
Christians, by and large, need to like fully embrace these distinctions between men and women and lift both of them up to as high a glorious position as we can.
During our Sabbath meal, we talk about how I always get this mixed up.
Is it the blessing or the...
I don't say it. We can do both. So the blessing that you give to the girls is, may our daughters be like columns sculpted in the palace styles, which means beautiful, strong, sturdy. Yes.
Right? If a guy comes and says, hey, come with this way, they don't just automatically run after. They're sturdy. They can say, maybe not.
And they know they're beautiful, so they're not chasing after validation from just anyone.
Right.
And then in their catechism question, how does a woman build a Christian culture?
Right.
They say
that she build her home and remain busy in it, and also that they be fruitful and multiplying. And
these are things that we need to train our daughters from little on. We give them baby dolls. We give them things to encourage motherhood and tenderness and nurturing.
When we buy them, like Nora got a little tea party set for Christmas, right? And she loves this thing. But that's what you want to encourage. So you facilitate that, right?
And this is where a lot of women struggle because of previous generations of women who don't know how to be domestic. But a lot of Christian women now are starting to come to these convictions, and they struggle with how to raise their daughters because they don't know how to be in the kitchen.
They're learning it themselves.
They don't know how to iron clothes. They don't know how to do any of these domestic things, let alone go the extra mile and learn to sew or knit or crochet or calligraphy or whatever, skill that they want to learn. It's very overwhelming because
I could see that
we've never learned. But anyway, I would just first of all say to the moms, challenge yourself, learn to grow. Your daughters are watching you. If you are making this look desirable, and look at all the freedom Dad affords me. I could learn to sew if I wanted to.
Yeah,
you can too. look at all the freedom that dad affords for our family. I get to stay home with you and teach you and raise you and all the, like, if you make it look beautiful and look like freedom, which it actually is, it's ultimate freedom to be safe in your home, then I think our daughters are going to be attracted to it and want to learn and grow and get into the kitchen with mom and learn how to manage a home and learn how to love children. Like, our oldest is almost 11, and all of the little babies at church love her. Yeah,
and she loves plopping them on her hip and walking around and stuff. And she's amazing.
And she sits with them in church even, and she's learning and growing in these skills even now, and she loves it.
Yeah, and when your daughter does those things naturally, just by whether it's just the Christian culture that you're in, because some of these things Lila just does.
Well, and I think it's because
pay attention. All I'm saying before you get on your thought is to notice it and encourage it. You have to affirm that.
Well, and even our friends are so quick to encourage her and just say, you know, so-and-so really loves you. You're such a good job. And that is helpful.
You're such a huge help. Yeah, it's really, really good.
Yep.
I had a thought, and it's all gone.
Sorry. I was just going to say, and a lot of it is just modeled. Like, girls look to what their mothers do, and they follow suit. And this is where I know I keep saying this, but moms, you got to step up your game. Like, it's not okay to just open a can of soup and, you know, feed your kids some mac and cheese for dinner and say, I cooked dinner, I did my job for the day.
Best I could do.
Like, I get there are days that that is actually just necessary, but by and large, up your game. Learn to do something that you aren't comfortable doing, that you have to struggle through for a few months to master. It's good for you. It's good for your soul. It's good for your kids to watch. And find ways that don't come natural for you to bless your family, and then teach your daughters. It's so good for them. Teach them. And as little kids too, our friend Sandra has a 4-year-old daughter. I think she just turned 4. And Naomi will be in the kitchen with Sandra, and she'll be making her little dough babies, which is what they, you know, we call like bread or whatever they're making it. She has her little dough baby that she's kneading. And so it's harder for moms to have little ones in the kitchen. It's harder for moms to teach little ones to do laundry. Yeah. But honestly, like, a 2-year-old can take clothes out of the dryer.
Yep.
Teach them how to do those things. Teach your daughters how to, and of course it's harder. Of course you could do it quicker yourself.
But that's not the point.
But that's not the point.
Right. The other thing, that's what I wanted to bring up, was to ask you about tomboys. Right. So what if, my daughter doesn't even care about the makeup. She doesn't care about, she just wants to put on a flannel ponytail every day and just doesn't have any interest. What would your advice be for the parent of that kind of a girl?
It depends, because sometimes I think, and this was me, I actually have 3 brothers, and I was very tomboyish. I liked playing rough with them outside. And I think for me, it was a lot of, like, I wanted to be accepted, and I wanted to be able to hold my own. And I think looking for male validation was a big part of it, especially in my teen years, right? You can be the loose girl and get validation that way, or you could be the girl who beats up the boys and have all the boys afraid of you, and that's just as good.
And you feel powerful,
and you feel empowered, and that's the feminist lie, right?
Yeah.
And so it's hard, because I would have to know the kid specifically. Maybe she's just 8 years old and doesn't like pink, and everything's pink, so she just gravitates towards the flannel. I don't think it's a sin to not like pink or glitter. I think it's just not my preference. I don't like wearing pink and glitter, so it's fine. I don't think that's a sin. But if she is opposed to anything feminine, that could be a massive sin problem. And in those cases, I would force my 13-year-old to, like, be more feminine. I would say, you don't have to wear pink, but we are going to go to the store and you're going to find a dress. Right.
You're not going to wear...
It could be a flannel dress, but you're going to find a dress and you're going to like it.
Yeah. And you can see from Scripture that a beautified... Is that a word?
I'm okay with it.
A beautified woman is an encouraged thing. Sarah, Abraham's wife, Sarai at the time, was said to be, very beautiful woman. Rachel, those things are pointed out in the Bible, and so we do know that there is a taxonomy when it comes to appearance. And so a certain kind of appearance is more valuable than another kind.
Mm-hmm.
And in women in particular, there's a few men, I think David might be one of the only ones that's said to be ruddy and handsome, you know. But the Shulamite woman in Song of Solomon is beautiful. Obviously very beautiful, and all these kinds of different attributes, the way she smells, the jewelry, the clothing, all that kind of stuff. And it's a good thing. That's an encouraged thing.
Mm-hmm.
There is a type of woman typified in the New Testament predominantly, but also in the Old Testament in Isaiah, with she's dressing a certain way and it's ostentatious.
And gaudy, yeah.
It's gaudy, and it's meant to allure, and it's meant to entice sexually.
And sometimes,
that's a bad thing.
And sometimes I think that the Christian tomboys may not be necessarily tomboys, but they're afraid of being immodest. And so this is where you just have to like have a conversation. Why are you not wanting to wear a dress?
Yeah.
Is it because you do want to just go outside and play on the playground, but you know if you wear a dress,
you can't?
Like everyone's gonna see your underwear? Okay, well, that's a legitimate concern, and you're not being a feminist. You know,
right.
That's not the problem here. The problem is that you just want to go on the swings and go play with your friends, you know?
Yeah. You're not hating who God has made you.
No, you just want to play outside with your friends. That's not bad. So, yeah, you just have to have a conversation and don't just be okay with I just don't like it, Mom, response. Like, you have to dig a little deeper, do the hard work of parenting.
And if it is just I don't like it, then I think you take your daughter to Scripture and just show that, like, well, God has pointed out that a woman being this way is a good thing, and you know, whatever.
And being beautiful is a gift, and you are beautiful.
Right.
And so just like everything else, we take the good gifts that God gives us, and we try and get back the, you know, as much return on God's investment as we can.
Yeah, and it's not a cookie cutter thing either.
No.
Right? I mean, every girl's different. Every girl's...
They have their own style. Every teenager prefers certain things, or even young kids prefer certain styles over, and that's fine. Give your kid a little bit of wiggle room to show some bits of individuality. That's totally fine, but make sure it is feminine individuality, right?
Yeah. Every day, this is ever more important.
Yeah. Well, and even now, like, our daughter will watch... we have two of them. I know we keep talking about our oldest one, but it's just most evident as they get older because they become more vocal about things. But she was watching the Great Canadian Bake Off, or whatever that show is called, and she was talking to us about how this one girl looked and how she thought, based on how she looked, she was going to act. And it's funny because how you do, like, look on the outside does communicate something to someone, and she was seeing that.
Yeah.
So
it's really interesting. It's good stuff.
Yep.
I'm trying to think of what else
would be helpful.
Want to share regarding this.
I think teaching your daughters not to be physical and tough in the way that boys are is very important. We do not allow our daughters to wrestle with boys,
or fight with boys, or anything,
or play rough sports with boys.
Right.
Like, it would never be okay for our daughters to wrestle a boy, ever.
Yeah. And I don't know if we said that vice versa, but with boys, it's the same thing.
Yes,
we tell the boy, like, no, you never physically dominate another woman. Yeah. That is not what you were supposed to do. You're supposed to protect, not...
And learning how to be encouraging, because, and we tell our daughter this too, both of our girls, that when you see something good in your brother, learn to encourage it. When you see him acting in a godly way and like a godly man, I want you to be able to verbalize that to him, not in a weird way, but it's important because someday you're going to have to encourage your husband and your sons and your pastor and, you know, just other friends. It's okay for you to learn how to communicate encouragement to a man.
Yeah.
And that's an important skill to build up. And that looks like, when they're little, not allowing your daughters to call their brothers poopy heads.
That's right.
That's not appropriate.
Yeah. No,
we respect godly men. We don't try and tear them down.
Yeah. I think I already said it somewhat for dads, but being present and involved and being always communicating and talking with your daughters is just so ridiculously important, because you see I mean, it's such a common thing to say, like, oh, daddy issues.
Yeah.
You know, or you see how a woman is acting and you're like, oh, her dad was obviously absent.
Right.
Or something
She's
like
trying
that.
to garner attention.
Right. Everyone knows that girl that
Yeah.
you're like, oh, dad didn't pay enough attention to her.
Yeah.
And so you want to, as dads, you want to make sure that you are encouraging that femininity and then affirming it and then being there all the time, complimenting them all the time, telling them you love them all the time, and kissing them all the time, hugging them all the time, tons of physical affection, just like however much you think you're doing, do twice as much.
Yeah.
And then you might be doing enough.
Right.
Because again, you want them to grow up and not have any hunger for that.
And as they get closer to puberty, even more so, because that's when dads start to kind of become like more hands off.
Well, and the girl might be about it. The girl might be right away. Like you may be totally fine with it too. But I can
you notice
see it
her
both
pulling
ways.
it away. Yeah,
You
pulling
can
away.
Her feeling like, oh, I'm a woman now. I don't need this like baby kind of cuddles, and dads need to overcome that and say, no, you come give me a hug and give her kisses.
You can
and all
still
that kind
snuggle
of
in and we'll watch a movie. And,
right.
Yeah.
You got to make that to be the normal thing.
Because if she doesn't get it from you, she will find someone else to get it from.
Because it's not that she doesn't want it.
No, yeah, for sure.
She's just growing up into figuring this out. And yeah, you certainly don't want her to get it anywhere else.
Another thing that I would say real quick before we end here is that there's this weird perception in Christendom, I think more so in Reformed circles, wherein women are just baby factories and they don't have a thought to themselves.
Yes.
All they do is just
this
when someone looks at them and says, what do you think about this? They just look to their husbands and just say, what do we think about this?
Yeah.
Like that's not okay.
No.
At all.
So encourage your girls to know theology.
Right? Totally. Like
they should be able to formulate the doctrine of the Trinity for you, whatever the incarnation means, what election means, what all this stuff, right?
They should be, like, your daughter should be every bit as educated as your boys. And they should be every bit as intellectual.
Right. They should know
competent.
why they're going to baptize their kids when they grow up.
Yeah, that's right. And why they're going to have a bunch of them. Why they're blessings. Like, all of this is incredibly important.
Right.
Your daughter shouldn't be stupid.
No, definitely not.
She's not a docile, meek little thing. You want men, the wrong men, to be
afraid of them.
To be afraid of them, and you want your women. Well, I guess they grow up to be women. Your daughters.
Yeah, like how
to be.
Just think about this one thing where, like, if a guy comes to your daughter and on the first date, your daughter can say something like, "So when's the last time you read through the Westminster Confession of Faith?" And for the guy to be like,
"What's that?"
What? I've heard of it once, and her just be like, "Oh, pathetic."
We had a friend. We still have a friend. When we were living in Brooklyn, she was a single lady, and she was talking to us about like these guys that she was meeting and that wanted to take her out on dates and stuff. And like one guy, she asked specifically like a Bible question. I don't remember what it was, but I just remember him being like, he had a very weird answer, and she was like, "Done with this guy." Like. He hasn't read his Bible in like 4 days or whatever it was.
Yeah, he just didn't read his Bible.
She was just like, "This is not my kind of guy," and she just like was done right away. And I think that's how you want your daughter to be. Like, if you can't talk about, I don't know,
if you can't just read your Bible,
anything.
I think she had said like even if he was reading his Bible but he didn't even like read it or recently or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was just like put off because she was so...
That needs to be totally unattractive. Yeah. To your daughters. So.
Strong women, intellectually.
Godly, feminine, domestic, strong women.
Yep. Who are not easily managed by anyone besides those who they must submit to, and only when.
Oh, I was gonna say that too.
Okay.
Ensure that your girls know the men who properly have authority over them. That is super important, because whenever we talk about submission to men in the church, there's always that person that says like, "Oh, you're just supposed to listen to whatever any guy says." No. Husband and in the Lord. So if a husband is asking a wife to do something ungodly, she doesn't have to do it. And if the husband is forbidding her to do something godly,
then she should not obey him.
She should not listen to him. And so you encourage your daughters in that way too. But like the proper authorities, dad, elders / pastor at the church. And I mean, that's it.
And once
really,
again,
but
only when what those men are doing or saying is godly and biblical.
Right.
If your pastor or your elders are not acting biblical, you don't listen to them. If your husband is not acting godly and biblical, don't listen to him.
And if some other dad or whoever tries to come in and tell your daughter what to do, dads, that's when you step in. You go, hey, whoa, you don't talk to my daughter.
Yeah.
And then you tell your girl, like, you don't have to listen to anything this guy's saying.
No.
He's not your dad. He's not your pastor. Not at all. You turn and walk away. Completely ignore him. Yeah, totally buy whatever it is.
Yep.
Yeah, you don't have to do what that person's saying.
Yep.
Come to me. As soon as you feel like someone's trying to tell you what to do, come to dad.
Yeah.
Right away.
Or like if you have someone watching your children, for instance.
Yeah.
Then we would say you do have to listen to Mr. and Mrs. B.
Right, but
or
that's
whatever.
when you have specifically delegated that authority, right?
You have given that authority over.
Yeah.
It's not just every man has
Understanding
authority over every woman.
proper authority is very important.
Yep.
Exactly. So, all right.
Anywho.
Well, we're gonna close this out. Hope that was helpful. Hope that is helpful to you if you have a daughter or will someday, soon, maybe. But anyway,
or you are a daughter.
There's something true too. If there's something we missed, something you'd like us to elaborate on,
clarify, maybe we misspoke or just didn't.
Again, we always ask you, send us a message, comment, ask the question. We love it. Look us up on.
Once again, we don't script these. These are just conversations that we have
all the time, and just record them for you.
Yep.
So hopefully they're
just
helpful.
because we like you.
So thanks for watching or listening. And we pray that you would be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that your labor is not in vain. Until next time, get woke.
Bye.